What's up, guys? Today on the Dad Shift, I'm going to do an interview with my wife, Amanda. We are going to share our marriage testimony, so hopefully, you guys enjoy. And we'll see you next shift. All right, you ready for this? All right, guys. Well, today I'm going to have my wife, Amanda, on the podcast. We're going to give our marriage testimony. We were challenged to write something up. We have both been involved in the re-engage ministry at our church. And so we kind of have a version that we've done for that. We're going to try to make this a little bit more natural, but yeah, we just wanted to share it with you guys, so I hope you enjoy. So I guess I'll start off. Amanda and I met in 2018. Yeah. So I had a buddy from college that I was really fond of, and he was kind of a mentor to me in college. And one of the days I was off for July 4th that year, and I came down to Houston to hang out with him, and we actually went to a party at Amanda's parents' house, and which was crazy because it was one of the few years that you were actually home, so definitely God ordained. But at the party, me and Amanda kind of hit it off, but I, being the ignorant guy that I was, and probably a little dumb, uh, I didn't want to do a long distance relationship. So at the time, I lived 3.5 hours from where she was living, and I was not going to be a fan of a long distance relationship. But being the gentleman that I am, I texted her after the party on Facebook and just said, if you're ever in East Texas, let me know. Thanks for being hospitable, and I really enjoyed my time. And then after that, we didn't talk for
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Oh,
Yeah.
you know it to the day. Was that like 21 days or was it 3 days?
Just over 3 weeks.
So for 3 weeks, we didn't say anything to each other. And she ended up burning her leg. And she texted me because I'm a firefighter. So she texted me for some burn related advice. And I gave her terrible advice. I told her that it probably wasn't really that bad, and it ended up she actually almost like lost her leg. But during that time, she was kind of bedridden, and so we got to talk a lot, and so we kind of established our relationship from there. I worked up the courage to ask her on a date to an Aggie football game with my non-blood brother and his wife. And we ended up going on a date before that, but then went to the football game and kind of hit it off. So I'll kind of what's your side of that story? It's a little bit different.
So we met at my parents' house at the party he's talking about, but I was like full on host mode. Obviously, it was my parents that are hosting the party, but I felt like I was kind of in charge of the kids. We'll forever be the kids. So I was making sure everyone had drinks and food and everything they needed. So I definitely noticed Tanner, and we definitely had some like interaction. We played cornhole and some other games, and but I was mostly like focused on making sure everyone was taken care of. But then apparently, I don't remember this part. You told me this part. But at the end of the night, when you had to leave, I gave you 2 hugs.
You did.
Which is pretty bold. So I guess I made the first move. And then pretty crazy, but after that we went out on the boat to go watch fireworks.
Not me. I left at this point.
Yes, he's gone. We went out on the boat, some other friends and my parents, and I turned to one of my friends who ended up being one of my bridesmaids at our wedding, but I said, "Hey, did you meet my future husband?" Referring to Tanner, which is crazy, right? Looking back, it's absolutely hilarious now. But then, he reached out, said that he was very grateful for my hospitality, and if I was ever in East Texas, to let him know. And then, like you said, I burnt my leg with cooking oil, and it got pretty bad. I remember trying to send a picture because he said, "Just show me a picture and I can like kind of see." And he was like, "Oh, I don't think it looks much worse than a sunburn." And little did he know, I tried to keep most of it from him because it kind of got just terrible. It got infected, and I was on bed rest at one point. I had to go to a burn specialist. They said I could lose my leg. It was a whole drama, but I was trying to keep that from him because that's not cute, and that's not something you want to share with someone that you're interested in. But because I was bedridden, I was able to text back and forth a lot and really get to know each other pretty quickly. And then, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
the first date. You
Yeah,
missed
first date,
the funny
so-
part about the first date was that he took me to, well, it was a surprise, and he took me to a shooting range. And I was not prepared for that at all. I was wearing a dress and flip-flops.
And I was wearing gym shorts and a t-shirt.
And also, this was one of the first times that I was like really up and walking and like standing for long periods of time. So my leg was like completely wrapped. So I just remember like being at the shooting range, like my leg was like aching, and I had to keep leaning back on the chair that they had there because my leg was throbbing in pain. But I couldn't say anything because I didn't want him to know. So I just thought that was a funny.
Yeah, and I don't really think I knew how bad that burn
No.
was until like well into dating, and maybe not even into marriage. Like, I mean, I think I knew when we were dating, but
Recently in the last year, I was like going through old photos and showed you some pictures of what it had looked like when it was like at its worst state, and you were
Yeah.
like, "Oh wow,
Yeah.
that is wild."
yeah. But needless to say, the date worked. So while we were talking, I got to hear like some bucket list stuff, and one of the things on there was shooting. So I was like, well, I can do that. So yeah, I actually brought her some flowers like this right here in front of us.
Sunflowers.
Yeah, the sunflowers on our first date, and but yeah, we started dating, and our dating life was, I would say it was awesome. I mean, we both had the ability. So at my previous job, I got off 4 days a week. And then you could make your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So what we would do is we would travel to each other back and forth, and we would basically spend the 4 days off that I had off together hanging out. So we went to football games, we went to concerts, we went to museums. We did a little bit of everything. I mean, like, it was pretty much every time we were together, we were doing all the fun stuff that you do when you're dating, but probably on steroids. And so it was awesome, but I think that might have set us up for a little bit of expectations for marriage that didn't get met early on. But but yeah, so we dated for about 8 months, and then I had already bought a ring, which she didn't know, but at the time she was living in an apartment, and I had kind of convinced her, like I had already decided I was going to ask her. I convinced her to move in with her parents for a little bit. And then we ended up moving her to Longview right before the marriage. And we got married on January 4th of 2020. So if that date kind of sounds familiar, it's because that was pretty much right before COVID shut everything down. But we got to have our wedding. I believe it was incredible. We had a lot of family there, a lot of people I hadn't even met yet. I met them the night before. I think I was going to try to go hunting that night, and that was probably our first really big fight. But I didn't. I stayed and met some of the family. And yeah, it was the wedding was amazing. And then we went to Europe on our honeymoon, and stuff had kind of actually started shutting down, so that was interesting. But when we got back, I had made together we had made the decision to change departments, which meant that I would have to move, which was a big move for me because the only other time I'd been out of Longview where I lived was for college. And if you're a firefighter, you know that the rookie year can be really, really rough. And so in the midst of our first 2 to 3 months of marriage, we got married. We got back from our honeymoon. I changed jobs. We moved houses. We moved in with your parents. Mm-hmm. And then your sister moved in with us because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I got to know the relatives really well. And then we also bought a house within 3 or 4 months. And then all of that was while trying to figure out married life. Mm-hmm. And it was rough. I was kind of the golden child growing up, so I figured marriage wasn't going to be a big problem, but we hit some blocks really early on. So I don't know, I'll let you kind of give your side of that little stint.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it was hard for me because I had been working for the past 5 years, and I had been moving up within a company. And to make the move to Longview, I had to take a demotion, so that was already hard. But then I ended up leaving that job completely. So as COVID hit, we had all these changes, but then I also didn't have a job anymore. So in my head, I didn't have a big purpose, and I think that put me in a dark place. I think living with family was, we made a lot of fun out of it. We did a lot of fun things, but it was also just a hard time not leaving the house. He was the only one that got to leave the house, so I would always ask him, like, what's going on in the
I
world?
think everyone would ask
How's
me,
the-
yeah,
yeah.
what's the real world like?
What's the world like out there? And I think for me, it put me into a little bit of a dark place, and I think that's one of the times that I started coping using alcohol during that time, and I think that in itself caused some of its own issues, and I've struggled with that before that in life as well, using that as a coping mechanism and stress relief. But I think that definitely added to some of what we were going through.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we were just hit with a lot. I mean, there was a lot of stressors. I mean, like, so on top of the pandemic, I had kind of my first experiences with just like some real bouts of anger, and I wasn't used to experiencing that. So one thing that we figured out early on, so whenever I had problems, like as a kid or teen or whatever that, if we had family struggles, I was able just to run away and escape from those problems. So I never really had to face them, which worked out for me for then. But in a marriage that it's new, whenever we would get in a little tiff or a fight or a big fight, I would just run off. I mean, literally, I remember one of those times, like driving off in the car and staying gone for 3 or 4 hours, not telling you where I was at. And you're the kind of person you like to stay and fight it out, and neither of those methods is necessarily wrong, but you do have to work it out together. And we definitely, I mean, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't leading us well, and I definitely was leading with anger. And then, like I said, on top of that, like, we lived with your family, which it was fun. We had a lot of fun doing that, but it was hard for us to figure out us. But even when we moved into the house, I don't know that changed much. I think we were still in the pandemic when we moved into the house, and then we pretty quickly ended up actually buying an RV fairly early on. I guess that was probably like, 2021-ish or late 2020.
Yeah.
And we ended up, with my schedule, I still had a lot of time off. As a rookie, I couldn't take time off, but I still had days off, and then that led into, we traveled a lot in a travel trailer. And I would say that, like, you were coping, you say, with alcohol, but I think we were both coping too with just traveling, like kind of trying to catch that dating high. So we hit state parks. I think in that first year, we hit well over 15 state parks, camped pretty much anytime we were off. We didn't go to church. We weren't really in church. We weren't involved with any group here. That would probably, I would say, characterize that whole first year. Like, other than family and like core friends, which even then we didn't have, we had people there, we didn't utilize it, but we really isolated, and I think that was our biggest struggle.
Well, I think we watched church online, and we tried out a couple churches, but
it was a weird time.
It was a very weird time. I remember walking to one of the churches, and it was still like deep in the COVID, and they were shaking hands, and I was like, whoa, because I didn't know how to feel about all that. So that was a big part of it. That was a hard time. And then a lot of our friends that we did have were either friends from Longview or, for me, friends that lived further away too. So that was another part of it. But yeah, we had not gotten plugged in to a church yet.
Yeah. And so, I think early on it was just, we got hit with a lot really quickly. And there was some pretty big fights early on, I think, and we tried to patch it with some, I would say, sporadic counseling. One of the things they would always tell me, so my deal was, I would kind of go from 0 to 100 within like seconds. Something would snap. And I was one of those, like, I would stay really quiet, and then Amanda would be just telling me things. And not necessarily do anything wrong in that, but it's like I just wouldn't fight back until I had hit my point, and then it was like all break loose. Like, so I'd get really mean and dirty with it, just like calling her names and things that weren't fair. And to you, it probably seemed like it was coming out of nowhere, which it kind of was. Like I said, it would be all nothing. I wouldn't talk at all, which would obviously make you angry, and then all of a sudden blow up. And so we would did some like patchy counseling here and there, and basically every time they would tell me like, oh, you just need to learn how to breathe. And so I'd try that for a little bit, and yeah, it would work for a short time. We'd go 6 months without a big fight, and then it would happen again. And then it would, do some more counseling. They would tell me a little bit different technique to try out, and that would work for a little bit. And I would say probably the first, 2 or 3 years of our marriage, that was it was traveling, work, or counseling.
Yeah, there would be like a blow up, and
Yeah.
then we would go to like 2, maybe 3 counseling sessions, and
Yeah.
then we'd be like good again, and
Yeah.
then we wouldn't go back. I would say from the first kind of round of counseling we did, one thing that I think that was great that came out of that was we closed the back door on divorce.
Yeah,
I remember,
which actually that came through the SYMBIS stuff, the Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. So that
Oh.
wasn't even counseling; that was online.
Okay.
But it talked about that. I don't
Yeah.
know. We probably talked about it in counseling too, but that was.
Yeah.
I do remember that
Because I
and-
think that had been, well, I knew that I never wanted to have
Yeah.
divorce, but to get a divorce. So in my opinion, I remember thinking at times that I was just going to be miserable forever.
Yeah.
And I think that for you, like you had never thought that divorce was an option, but like we're like,
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't, but it was one of those. I think even in that short time, I figured out stuff that could affect you,
Yeah.
and it would make you mad.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those tools I could use, and I'm pretty sure I remember saying like, you would say we can't get divorced. Divorce isn't gonna, or like divorce isn't real, or something like what you would say. Yeah, I forget exactly the words you would say. Or like divorce isn't an option.
Isn't an
That's what
option.
it was.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, divorce is always an option. Like I wasn't straight up saying I want to divorce you, but I was
Right.
like, I'd twist that word, like
Yeah.
kind of like what Satan does. He twists it just a little bit, like to know where it'll spike, and that's kind of what I was doing. And so I mean, in the middle of all that, I would say I managed to pick up a pornography addiction as well, and I kept it hidden from you for I don't know a couple months. I wasn't keeping track or anything, but you actually ended up catching me, caught some history on the I guess the computer or something, and confronted me about it. And I don't know that I really truly came clean. I mean, I kind of probably skirted around a little bit, but I think finally with some prodding, I admitted like, yeah, I'd been doing it, and I think in my own way, I justified it like it was. I mean, I hear a lot of people say it, and I know it's bad. I know it's not biblical by any means, and obviously, as a Christian, it's something we shouldn't even toy around with. But still, I had justified it in my mind like this isn't hurting anybody, and I think somehow I just was thinking it wasn't hurting you at all. But I think it destroyed you, and it's just. We get so caught up in trying to have like instant gratification, and I thought that it was bringing some instant gratification, and I thought that it was helping out with stress and things like that, but really what it was it was tearing our relationship apart. Like I felt like it wasn't affecting it at all, but I would say if anything it probably drove us further apart. And I remember one of the biggest moments in our marriage, at least, was for a while she would check in. I mean, she was really good about that. She would just say, every couple of weeks or so, she'd be like, have you looked at anything? Have you been struggling? Like, let's talk about that. And I would tell her like, yeah, I struggled here and there, but it was never on my end. It was always from you questioning it, basically. But there was a time that you were going away on a trip. You were going to be out of town for 2 or 3 days, and I had looked at some pornography the night before, and something was telling me that I need to tell you, which I was like, this is the worst absolute time. Like
was
Satan
the
was,
worst.
Satan was
Also
definitely tempting me. He's like, don't tell her because she's about to be gone for 3 days. You're not gonna be able to talk a whole lot. Like, but I remember on the way to the airport, I was like, hey, I need to tell you something, and I confessed it to you, and I could see the shock, but also I could see, and I don't even know if you felt that. I mean, that could have been a God thing too, but it just, to me, I felt a weight lifted, and I could see relief from you knowing that I guess I had willingly confessed that. And like I said, I don't even know if that's on your end. I mean, what are your thoughts about that? Like that, what was going through your mind? Because you handled it incredibly, and I think that changed our relationship. I really do. Like,
It definitely hurt.
Yeah.
My stomach kind of dropped. But I thought it was an opportunity to respond, one of two ways. And I think one way was going to allow you to share more openly in the future, and the other way would shut that down. So I am grateful now that happened. But yeah, I mean, it hurt.
Yeah.
But instantly, I forgave you, and
Yeah.
I was just mostly grateful that you willingly shared, even when it was an inconvenient time.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you've always been very good about forgiveness, which I've been thankful for. But yeah, I mean, that was a huge moment in our marriage, and I think it opened up just a new level of a deepened relationship, like emotional level that we had really never crossed before. I mean, and that wasn't, obviously, I mean, you'll hear about it more. That wasn't the end of our struggles, but I do think that would kind of kickstart maybe our change together. I think at that time we had kind of started trying to get back to church. We still weren't fully committed. But around 2022, we had, you told me we were pregnant with our first daughter. And something hit me. Like, I was obviously extremely excited. We had been trying not super long. We were very blessed with that. And, but it kind of hit that I hadn't really been a leader for you. And obviously I had no idea how to be a leader for a little girl. And, I knew that we needed to get back into church. And, I knew that was going to be really important for our kids. And I knew we needed to make our faith a priority. And so, we had started going to one church, and I wouldn't say we ever got fully plugged in there, but we were making a much bigger commitment than we were before. And during that time, we ended up actually getting involved. Well, we went to the class Re-Engage, so as students, I guess, at a different church. And then at that time, Harper wasn't there yet, but you were doing Momco. Well, I guess, yeah, Harper was in school at FBC at that point. And so we decided to make the full switch to First Baptist and really get involved there. But the Re-Engage course is kind of what kick-started that. And we just fell in love with the marriage ministry. We had an amazing class. We had a couple in our class that we're actually leading with now that have been married, almost 50 years or more?
Yeah.
And then we had all walks. So, we were probably on the younger end of that class. I think there may have been one other couple that maybe had been married a little bit less, but then all the way up to 50 years. And it was just a cool experience to share marriage stories with other couples and really just be working on your marriage together. And so I think something we've become passionate about is really trying to get people to get involved with this ministry. I think when people first hear about it, they think, well, my marriage isn't that big of a problem, so I don't need this. They think of it as counseling.
Right.
And it's not counseling.
Or like my marriage has to be in shambles for me to go, but it's not.
But I think we realized quickly that a lot of the skills that we had maybe picked up here and there in sporadic counseling was taught in this course, and I feel like it was better in some aspects. Now, it's not a replacement for professional counseling, but I do think it worked wonders on our marriage, and it opened up, like, we learned how to communicate, and we learned about intimacy and all the other aspects. And it really did. I think that was a big kickstart. Other than the pornography stuff, like, that's really what got us together on board. And we had decided, we were talking about, do we stay at our other church while we're still doing everything here at this church? Because we wanted to become leaders of Re-Engage, or facilitators, I should say. And then at that time is when Harper was already going to school there, and then you were doing Momco. And so we didn't have any problems with our old church necessarily. We still love it. It's a great church, and we still talk to people from there. But we wanted to be fully committed, and so it's like, do we get half committed at two churches or fully committed at one? And so I think with some prayer and some prodding from you, I think God had already told you that's where you wanted to be, and I think I told you. I mean, it wasn't a I don't want to be there. It was more just wanted to make sure we weren't doing it for a consumerism kind of thing. Like
Right.
we wanted it to be the right choice for our family and
For the right reasons.
right. And I think it has been.
Yeah.
To be clear, it's been absolutely incredible, and we've been there maybe almost 2 years now, and it has been a huge blessing. We have a great relationship with our pastor, a great relationship with most of the church at this point,
Yeah.
and it's been incredible. But so that kind of rolled into 2023 when we got really plugged in to FBC and we were hitting our stride. At this point, we were facilitators for Reengage, and we really enjoyed it. And for some reason, in that time, I started getting really, I would say, I don't know. At this point, I guess I would call it a depression, but it was just really, I would get really dark. I wasn't really reaching out. There was things I was struggling with. And at the time, I didn't really know what it was, but I'll share a verse with you real quick. So Ephesians 6:12, it says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." And at this time, so I would say, like looking back, we'd characterize that as spiritual warfare, and hadn't really ever looked into that or believed it to be a thing. You know, people always say like, "Oh, the devil's trying to get at me because traffic was bad today or something," and so I kind of brushed it off. But what it really came down to was during that time, Amanda was pregnant with our second daughter. She was going through some things, and then I was going through this depression, and I didn't want to be at home. I mean, it wasn't. I think I even told you it's like I don't. It's not that I don't want to be around you and Harper. It was that I didn't want to be home because of the stuff that was going on here. And it didn't feel like home, and work was my escape. And I wasn't telling you what I was going through, I think out of maybe shame, because on paper, I think everything looked perfect. I mean, we had the kid, we had the dogs, we had the marriage, we had the house, and we had one on the way. And so I didn't want to talk to anybody and say, you know, what I was feeling wasn't matching with what was on paper.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel comfortable sharing that with anybody. And so I just got really negative. And so during that time, I was going through my stuff. You were going through your stuff. You want to talk maybe a little bit about your side from that point? And
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think kind of back to what you're talking about, the spiritual warfare stuff. I also think that we were really investing in our marriage, and we were trying to invest in the marriage of others. And I think that that's the last thing the devil wants is us to strengthen marriages, let alone help strengthen other marriages. So, like you said, we'd gotten pregnant with our second, and I had experienced some of this with our first, but the hormones were just awful. And for me, it resulted in a lot of OCD and anxiety, like to a debilitating level. And I can't even describe it, but I felt like my mind wasn't my own anymore, and I was trying everything that I could. At one point, I was seeing 3 different counselors, doing what I could to try to like get back to normal, because I knew it was affecting you guys, but I felt like there was nothing I could do, and it was tough. It was a tough time.
yeah, well, I think up to this point, I mean, we had been through our fights and stuff like that, but we had done a good job, I'll say, like volleying off of each other. Like I would kind of go through a little bit of a bad spell, and then you would support me through that, and then I would do the same. But this time it was like it both hit us
At the
same time. And
right.
I think that's what really it threw us for a loop. I mean, that's all it was. And it just was a really dark time. And luckily at this point, I mean, you were much more involved at the church than I was at this point, just like with Momco. And so you had found your people there that could help you through this. And I remember, what was that, November of 23, I guess, or 20, yeah, I'm trying to think of the years now. So whatever that, yeah, November of 23-ish, I had kind of finally opened up and I said, hey, like, I need some help. And I had I had randomly looked up on, so I'd gone in the garage one day, and I don't even think you even knew what was going on. And I was doing some work out there, and I broke down. I don't even know if you were home. I don't know what it was, but literally Googled on on my phone, just help for first responders, trying to figure out if there's someone out there that would help. And I didn't reach out to anyone I knew, which that was my own fault. But this place randomly popped up, and it's called After Action. It's a place out of California, which I'd never been to California. But I started looking into it, and something told me to call them. And so I called him, and a guy picked up the phone and was like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" Like, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking for. I just need some help. Like, and so I kind of talked to them. I hadn't told you anything at this point, and like, I don't know, something was telling me like I just needed to go and get help. And something wasn't right, and so I think I finally broke the news to you, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not okay. I need to go to California," which was probably not the best way to break that news to you. But you were shocked initially, obviously, but you agreed, and at this point we had a 2-year-old and then a baby on the way, and so this place was a 2-week treatment program that basically specializes in mental health and addiction counseling, and it's, like I said, specific for first responders. And yeah, you let me fly off to California to get some help, and I really appreciate that. And I think it was obviously an awesome time to reset, but it was also hard just because, I mean, from your viewpoint, I left you here and you were still struggling with your problems.
Yeah.
And so, what was going through your mind through all that?
I think both of us had been kind of trying to find some sort of resources prior to that. And I think in my mind we were focusing on getting me some sort of help to try to work through what I was going through. So I was a little blindsided because I think I was so hyper focused on everything I was going through and trying to fix myself that I didn't realize how bad it had gotten for you. Not that I didn't care, it's just I was so hyper focused on trying to fix myself for my family. And so when you did tell me that, I think I was a little shocked because I kind of thought that we were trying to fix me, per se, which the whole point of this is that you can't just be fixed, as we'll learn. But that's what we were trying to do. So it was a very scary thought because I was dealing with all the things I was dealing with. And it was actually December, so it was right around the holidays. You were home barely in time for Christmas. And I was super pregnant, so I was, 7 months pregnant at that point. And our toddler, love her, but the thought of all of that, when you're that exhausted and going through everything we're going through, was hard. But I knew that we needed to do this for our family and for you, and it was a priority, and we made it work. And luckily, I had lots of support from family and so many friends that were reaching out and willing to help at that time. So
yeah, and I think, we'll talk about that a little bit more too, but it's just it sounds like a lot was going down the drain, I guess, but it's really cool to see where God was orchestrating stuff, because I think if we had been where we had previously been before we had started church, we wouldn't have had any community, and so I don't know that even would have been an option. And at that time, so to be clear, I was going through some mental health stuff, but I was not suicidal at that point. Like I think I'd even told you that. Like, I was just, something was off. I needed to get help. I didn't want to be home, that kind of thing. And going to the counseling, for me, it was kind of a kick in the rear because there was a lot of, I mentioned a little bit just about some family stuff, but there was some trauma from the past that I had basically stuffed away. And what I learned at this counseling was that the trauma from our past, it can affect us whenever things come up. So like when me and Amanda would fight about something, it would trigger something from my past, and then it would make me react a certain way. So we have these neural pathways that I had learned early on. If something goes wrong, run away. But the counseling that we had received at this point was like, hey, you can't run away. And so then I was like, well, what do I do? So we'd sit there and fight it out. And then it would be this, we fought it, and then I would call you all these bad things and say all these bad things. And then you would want me to ask forgiveness for those things, which is justified. But then I would have to go through this shame cycle and all this other stuff. But really, that's kind of sidetracked, but really what it got down to is I wasn't dealing with my past the way I needed to, and I was dealing with a lot of trauma that I didn't realize on top of the job, and a lot of it wasn't even from work. I mean, obviously work has pressures, but the combination of old trauma on top of trying to lead a family. There's our Roomba. Starting to figure all that out was just, it took a lot out of me, I think, and got me to the point where I was. But this counseling, basically, it was 2 weeks of intense counseling. I personally got about 2 years of counseling in a matter of 2 weeks. And so I worked through a lot of issues. We had some sessions with you via Zoom and stuff like that, but you were still going through your stuff here. But I think it was a kick in the rear that I needed to realize, like, there was a lot more in my past. And up to that point, counseling had been more of a, I will do it because you want me to do it. And at that point, I was like, all right, this needs to be a thing. And so I think both of us going into this even thought this would be the fix. It's like, I'll do this 2 weeks and I'll be good to go.
Yeah.
And I learned pretty quickly coming back that wasn't the case too. It's like, this is going to be a lifetime process. And
right. Well, and you were coming back to me being in the same circumstance I was in.
Yeah.
And then you had all this stuff bubbled up and brought to the surface.
Yeah.
And didn't really, 2 weeks isn't enough time to fully work through all of that.
Well, yeah, and most of the programs there are like over 30 days, but I knew that wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't leave you and Harper at that time for that long. And but I mean, like you said, it kind of, I got this kick in the rear with a lot of emotional stuff. So one of my problems, like I said, was anger. So normally when we would fight, I would resort to anger, and now I'd figured out, like, I don't need to go to anger, so it's better to be quiet. And then so I'm working through all these emotions, and I think at one point after I'd returned, we had a fight about something, and we had set up some boundaries that we were supposed to keep, but we never had before. Like, we had learned in counseling, like, you need to say, you know, all right, I need to end this tonight. Like, we need to just move on. But we never did. We always just battled through it. That's just how it worked. Whether, it doesn't matter who would do it. I mean, we would both do it. But this night, I went in with the same, like, we set the boundary a couple weeks before, probably in counseling, but we had never had that be the end all before. So why would that change now,
Right.
especially from your end? Like, you didn't receive all that counseling. And so it just got to a point one night, like, I went and I grabbed a gun and I was going to end it all. And luckily you stopped me, and you called one of my buddies and my parents and talked me down. But I think that was a scary moment for both of us, because up to that point, I wouldn't say there was anything, like, there was mental health stuff going on, but I didn't realize that it was that bad. And it was scary. I mean, I think we're still working through that trauma of that night, and I don't think it's fun for you, and it's obviously not fun for me either, and we're working through that. I feel like that was a very low point, but I also think that God used it, and I think you handled it as well as you could and did the right things, and I think it gave me the realization that, like you said, this wasn't a 2 weeks and done. It's going to be a lifetime process to work through this.
Yeah.
So
I think we've very quickly, for me, got some counseling to work through the trauma.
Yeah.
And in one of those sessions, we do EMDR, and in that, you kind of like are closing your eyes and visualizing an event. So we were working through that event. So I'm visualizing that night and how it all went down and where we were in the bedroom and all these things, all the details. And I literally remember seeing Jesus sitting in the chair in our room, in our bedroom, the night it was happening. And for me, that was such a huge moment, just realizing that, like, he never left us through this. He was always there, even in a time where, like, we felt so lost. He was there, and he kept us safe, both of us, that night. And for me, that was really important part of my spiritual walk too.
Yeah.
Just clinging to God in the tough times, realizing that he never left.
Yeah. Well, and it's easy. I mean, definitely, like I said, I think that was eye-opening for both of us. I didn't think you, at that point, like I said, didn't know that, I guess, everything ran that deep emotionally for
Yeah.
me. I tend to keep my emotions pretty bottled up. And I think that was the first time maybe you saw a breaking point like that.
Yeah, I was completely blindsided, like
Yeah.
shocked.
And I was
I
too.
couldn't
Like I
even
said, yeah.
comprehend what was happening in the moment, truly.
Right. Yeah. And, when I look back at it too, it's like I said, I had never really struggled with that up to that point. So it was scary. And at that point, like I said, I started, obviously, with my counseling that I had done in California, we'd kind of set up a treatment plan and things like that, like with counseling. But um, it was kind of hit or miss because it was holiday season coming back, and then before you know it, you're back into the normal routine. And but at that point, I think I made the commitment. All right, I need to figure this out, and so I started doing basically counseling every other week and working through that. And then we were doing a little bit of marriage counseling here and there. At this point, we had stepped away from the marriage ministry that we were involved in because Addie came along in March, and so we were in the thick of it again with the baby. But by the grace of God, we got through all that, and it's kind of, like I said, it's one of those things. It sounds super scary, and it's easy to ask, kind of like where God was and all that. But just like with your session, and like when I look back at it now, there's so many things that God orchestrated in that time. Like, I think that He was always there, and if we didn't think He was there, it was really our own doing. It was us not choosing to turn to God, and I think this has really made us as a couple tap in and say, like, God, we can't do this on our own, and we're still struggling through that. We're not by any means the most godly couple out there. I mean, we still have our struggles, but I guess what we wanted to share our testimony for, and what we love talking to people about now at Reengage as we're facilitators again, is just the fact that we have such an amazing community around us that God's placed around us, and we need to utilize that. I mean, I think that's one of the things we're passionate about. And then also just knowing that you're not going through it alone. I know that's on my end is a big part of that. And I think you share a little bit of the same heart behind that. Just, I think a lot more people struggle with this stuff than we give credit. And I think that that's one of the Satan's tactics, is he wants you to think your marriage is the only one with those problems. And if we've learned anything through Reengage, as well as what we've been through, I would say it's that, for lack of a better way to put it, there's people that are a lot worse off, have had a lot worse marriages than us, and there's people that have been better. But that doesn't mean that they're not going through stuff. And really, it's just been humbling, and we wanted to share our story with people because I think we hear a lot of stories. It's, God changed my heart, and then everything's on the mend. And I think we're still hopefully on the better end of this, but we're in the thick of it. I mean, we are with kids and everything right now. And, I've figured out through all this, the counseling, and then actually going and getting diagnosed with like PTSD and depression and anxiety, things that I never wanted to get a diagnosis for because I was scared. I think it actually helps to know a little bit more and starting to recognize like, that is what anxiety looks like. Because from my end, I always saw it as, people just having like a panic attack and stuff. I was like, well, that's not what's happening to me. And then in the same way for you, like just figuring out how we can work through this together. And it's not always going to be easy. I think we still get in fights and stuff like that. We're not perfect. But it's a journey. And I really do think God has blessed us. And I think as we continue to grow closer to God, we're going to grow closer to each other. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for me it was just an opportunity to work on a lot of things for myself. I think it was an opportunity for you to work on a lot of things for you. I think it made us a lot closer. I think all of the hardest times that we've had are the times that have ended up making us closer together.
Absolutely.
And I that just is so encouraging to me. And going into future hard times, knowing that will come out of it, and knowing that we're going to be stronger at the end is so motivating to me. And like you said, like, people are like, well, where is God in this? Or why do these things, keep happening? Or why do bad things happen to good people? It's like, there is purpose in it. There's purpose in the pain. Like, now being able to share this story with other people, we've connected with so many couples that have struggled with such similar things that they haven't shared with anyone.
Yeah.
And didn't think that they ever would. But then we talk to them and we're open about it now. And they're like, oh my goodness, thank you. And they share their stories, and that's what it's all about, hope and encouragement. And I know for me, I had some struggles as a teenager as well with mental health, and even to the point of like suicidal thoughts. And I never understood why all of that happened for me as a teenager, but now I see that like I was able to like empathize and understand what you were struggling with. It wasn't as, it was still hard, but it just gave me a lot of empathy for what you went through. That was like very full circle for me, just seeing that like God allowed those things to happen to me as a teenager so that we could get to this point and learn from it, and hopefully help other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been the biggest encouragement so far, as we're coming on the latter end of some of this stuff, is just, like you said, getting to share that with other couples, and then hearing their stories that are similar to ours or nothing like ours, but it's encouraged them to open up.
Yeah.
Has been truly incredible. And I think, like I say, we would never, I think you would agree, we wouldn't wish this on anybody, what we've been through. And it sounds a lot lighter here than it really was during that time. I would say it's easy to talk about it. It's not easy to talk about it, but it is, in the sense that I think we both believe that God's got a purpose in this story. So we've found some ease to talk about it, maybe. But that's not to lighten the fact.
I find it healing.
Right.
Because there is purpose in it.
And honestly, though, I mean, it really is. I think one of Satan's biggest fears is a marriage that is focused on Christ. And I think when we look back at certain points in our testimony as a married couple, it's like when we decided to try to take steps towards Christ, Satan was definitely hitting back.
Yeah. And
I feel like early on, we were not as prepared for that, and I feel like as we've gotten stronger, we've prepared more, and so we get blows coming all the time. I mean, within recent months, we've had some fights and stuff that's not fun to go through, but I really do think all of that coincides with, when we decide to do something that is out of our comfort zone, or something that we want to, whether it's sharing our testimony or being re-engaged leaders, or just talking with people in the church and trying to invite people into our home. Like, I think we've gotten some attack there, and I think we're learning to work through that. So I think our biggest thing too that we wanted to share with people is like, just because you come to Christ and just because you're a couple that's centered on Christ doesn't mean you're not going to have struggles. Because we hear about that a lot of times, and that's awesome. That's a blessing. I pray that for every marriage out there, that they don't go through these struggles. But if you do, I think our biggest point from this testimony is just to know that there's other people that are struggling too, and that you don't have to go through it alone. And I think that's really what's gotten us through it. And now that I've chosen to tell more people about my struggle and gotten closer with some other guys in the church, and we've gotten close with other couples, and then you've gotten close with other women in your life, like, we can share those struggles and share those burdens. And I think that's just something we weren't really utilizing, and a lot of people don't. Satan wants us to isolate. And
isolation breeds sin.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but there was one, it was in one of the books I read, and it said, sin is always done in isolation, but healing always comes in groups, like with other people. In community. There you go. That's so. I don't know. I appreciate you being open to share. Do you have anything else you want to add? I'm going to close this out with a verse that we.
The only other thing I was going to add is, I think, especially recently, I think we've been doing really, really well. And for me, because of what we went through, sometimes that makes me really nervous. Like, not to get too excited, not waiting for the next shoe to drop. And I don't think that that's healthy. And I've talked to a lot of people that feel kind of similarly when they've gone through struggles. But I just think it's so important when things are going well to just focus on like gratitude and thankfulness for all that we have. And just enjoy today, enjoy your family, enjoy your church, enjoy your community. And, you know, hard times are guaranteed to come.
Yeah.
Like that, it's not a if, it's a when.
Yeah.
But being grateful for what we have now, and then just keeping in mind that good is going to come from those hard times. And just focusing on joy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my biggest takeaway right now, what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a healthy level of, I would say, fear is not the right word either, just caution.
Yeah.
I mean, we're even told in the Bible, like, Satan's prowling around looking for someone to pounce on. So we have to identify areas that we're going to struggle in.
Yeah.
And so having some preparation or caution towards that's okay. But
Right.
if it's like you're saying, like if it's
don't let
something
it
that's
steal all your
controlling,
joy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing with these people. And like I say, our main goal is just to share it with other couples, and hopefully you don't go through the same struggles, but if you do, reach out. We want to talk to you. We'd love to walk through our struggles with you and just let you know that you're not doing it alone. But I'll end it with a verse that I thought was very powerful. This is something that I found after some counseling that we had gone through, and someone actually reached out with this verse. It's in 1 Peter, it's chapter 5, and it's verses 6 through 11. It says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. Be alert and of sober mind. The enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to destroy. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world are going through the same kind of suffering. And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast."
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'll close this in prayer, and then we'll get out of here. So.
All right.
Dear God, we just want to thank you for the opportunity to share our testimony. I ask that you just not use it for our glory, but for your glory, God. I hope that whoever's listening just gains something from this. God, we want people to know that you have all the power, and that you're an amazing God and you love us, and that you will help us when we call out to you. God, I just want to thank you for Amanda. Thank you for the amazing woman that she is. I want to thank you for our marriage, and just everything you've done for us. Thank you for our kids and our friends and our church, and just the opportunity to share life with everyone we have. We ask that you just help us bring you glory in all that we do. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Cool beans. Thank you.